Yes, we are from the English department. Wow.
Okay, so I tried to just use the handout to kind of give some of the reasons why I found that I really liked using Jing and kind of giving feedback in this format, as well as in terms of kind of the negative section. It's a little skewed, but focusing more in terms of things that I noticed that made it a little bit more difficult my first couple times through. So I started using Jing after going to the C's and hearing some other people talk about using kind of verbal feedback. There were a couple of really nice articles circulating I want to say through like higher education and like the Writing Commons that were just talking about some people that had used Jing and kind of their students' response to them. And some of the things that caught my attention were students feeling that it was a lot more personal. So that you were eliminating, the 20th paper, and you've gotten a little cranky about everybody's topic sentences being pretty crappy at this point in time, and that was coming out passive-aggressively in your written comments, where it may not come out when you still have this tone, and you can be a lot more personal with your students. With that, some people had, some of the articles that I had read were talking about people using like iPhone videos to talk to students, so literally just recording a straight-on shot of themselves or whatnot. But some students reported that they didn't like the eye contact, that made them feel really uncomfortable, like their professor was talking, too much to them. So Jing kind of, I feel like, is in the middle of that because you're able to screen capture their paper. I also like the fact that because you're screen capturing their paper, it can make the student really feel like you're giving it attention and feedback as you go through. Kind of in terms of my own style of using Jing, it also makes me really keep on track with how much time I'm spending responding to a student paper because the video itself can only be 5 minutes. That means that I need to actually only give 5 minutes of commentary. So it's a good way for me to not spend way too much time talking to students and be a little bit more realistic. So that's good for me in terms of making me focus on kind of more higher order issues and not get bogged down with like minute little details in my feedback. Okay, so I guess just in terms of kind of showing you a few things, these are all pretty rough. This is me responding to one of my really wonderful students from last spring. There it is. And this is kind of in the middle portion.
Kind of different survey results, for lack of a better way to say this, test.
Still not hearing anything. Is there like an audio button for this? Well, the audio cord should be good. The ball.
He's gonna go get help.
Little green side on the down here.
Well, that sounded like that. Fix that. Is there a volume?
It's going through. I mean, I can hear it in the speakers.
Yeah. Are you able to turn the volume up there?
When students wonder, like, well, why doesn't it work smoothly when my professor uses technology? Because, and I always want to be like, you get up here and try. And by the way, teach a lesson while you're doing it, okay?
Miss Crank.
All right.
Results, for lack of a better way to say this, test results, I guess. And so this was something that, as I was going through, I was going, wow, okay. Obviously, I totally agree with everything that you are saying. You have well researched this argument. It is clear and easy to read. And for someone who's not an engineering major or a scientist, I think that's a really valuable skill to be able to put forward. But at the same time, I was going, wow, okay, but I'm not feeling excited about being persuaded about this. But I think that is related to the fact that you're writing this in the scientific voice. And so after reflecting on it, I said, you know what, I think this is a real strength. It's not what I expected to see in E110, but I think in terms of you do exactly what you set out to do in this introduction, which kind of brings me to my next place, which is to say I think you did a really excellent way. You captured my interest here, certainly. You tell me exactly what you're going to talk about and what you're not going to talk about. And then probably the best sentence here is this kind of summative thesis statement of what you're going to do.
Okay. So that's enough of listening to myself there. So this was one of my students who really blossomed over the course of the semester, but he was about as engineering of a student as you could find. And so working with him to kind of get away from writing just strictly a lab report and to try to encourage him to find his own voice and something that he was comfortable with was really central focus of like our conferences together and whatnot. And so I was showing that clip just to show that this was me being able to kind of bring those two things together in a way that I don't think would have been possible if I was doing just written feedback to him. So I would say that obviously responding on paper drafts is probably the most typical use of Jing, but one thing that you could certainly do is also respond to multimodal assignments with it, and positive with this is you can respond in real time. So for instance, I had my students do a YouTube video and that they had to post, and since I can screen capture that and stop and start the video as I'm giving them feedback, this is also another way that I think we can be a little bit more in tune with our students understanding that feedback in a really direct fashion than sometimes when they get these very just summative comments at the end, right? So unfortunately, when I made this video for today, I had my earphones on, so you actually don't get to hear the video that is playing, even though I'm responding to it. So I apologize for that, but
powerful images that will resonate with your viewer and create interest.
She was talking and there was some music playing and some things like that going on at the moment.
Here, I really want to focus on how you both have continuity with the background music that you've chosen, but then also layering that with the actual audio from this clip itself, I thought was really positive.
So this isn't probably the best example because obviously you guys can't hear what was going on in the background there. But again, like I think this is a good example of like the usefulness of Jing because it's so simple. It's just a screen capture. So everything else is still working just the way it normally would be when we're actually reviewing students' work. And I think that that's something that really translates well to them in terms of making them aware of you as kind of this well-intentioned reader, grader, viewer in the moment. And that's something that I think is lost for a lot of our students who are so used to kind of the red pen feedback from a lot of their professors. So this is the actual Jing website, which I, as you can see, I am not a technology person. But it took me maybe tops like an hour to kind of get used to Jing and to have played around with it enough to feel comfortable then giving these videos to students. Because it's free, it's a really quick install, and then the little icon up here is actually the Jing icon, and when you click on it, you can choose kind of to look at things you've made, to make a capture, which is the plus sign, which works really well to me, or to kind of look at, this would be like all the files that I've done in Jing, and because I'm not super techie, that's where they stay, and that's where I find them. But I thought that the support was really simple. They have just a ton of videos. They're all really well titled, so you're kind of able to troubleshoot to your heart's content really simply, and so that was kind of, for me at least, kind of a major fact with choosing Jing. And then to give it back to students, you're literally just pasting a link to them into the commentary or feedback area, which for me was really helpful in terms of I no longer had to download and then re-upload all these comments, and then you're also typing comments or copy pasting comments into the commentary box and things like that. So for me it was a huge time saver. I wasn't as worried about the fact of crap, like what if I uploaded someone's paper incorrectly or sent the wrong one to a student, because I was able to do them like very much more one at a time with this. It was just really simple for me. The last kind of big section on your handout is just using Jing in other forums, and I think this is something for me, thinking about different ways that you could integrate this in your classroom actually with your students. And this is kind of coming from being more aware of the different learning styles that are out there, but also some of the things that we do with our students that I think we immediately kind of say, well, we want written feedback to kind of prove the thoughts and things that they're doing. And Jing actually would allow you to capture them, reading through an article. And kind of verbalizing what's going on with them, or verbalizing their feedback and directing attention to different areas. It would allow you to, instead of doing like a reflective letter, to have them again kind of like walk you through their paper. And then it's a 5-minute video that you're reading really quickly before giving them, commentary on that paper. So I think that there's a lot of possibilities once you start thinking about how easy it is to include it. And because it's free, works for both Mac and PC, they're just pasting the link. I think it's also something that they would feel really comfortable with in some ways, and you could then get more of that kind of like a dialogue going with your students instead of it being very literally black and white on a page. So that's really all I have. I don't know, did you want to do questions at the end, or?
Maybe if there's questions specific to Jing, we can ask them now. Yeah, and I have sort of just a logistical question. If you're just pasting a link, is it linking them to the Jing website, and then is it stored in some sort of like cloud in Jing?
Yeah, so essentially it is linking them to this, and then this would come right up, and down here, so when you finish your video, you would be able to name it, and then you can share via screencast.com, and that's where it's linking them to.
Okay. Do you know how long they keep that in their own archive then, or?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, these are 8 months old and they're all still there. So I don't think you would have a problem, certainly, to have a semester's worth of work there. I don't know how much longer it would be. You can also choose to put them on your own computer. I fiddled with that a little bit, but I found this to be a little bit more reliable just to have the link go there.
Two questions. First of all, how have your students reacted? Do they like it? Does it make it feel like, did it make sense to them?
Not really, because I only did this for the very last essay, and I think at that point they were pretty done with it last spring, and I didn't teach this past fall. Mm-hmm. But the ones that, were my kind of go-getters, friendly students, they, of course, were super positive. But I also feel like that was like a very biased population to be getting those responses from.
My keeners were keen.
Yeah, I mean, I will say one thing that I also really liked is that, especially in the drafting stage when you're trying to model for a student or whatnot, this I felt so much more comfortable kind of giving those verbal models, whereas, so often, especially with some of, your more struggling students, they just copy and paste that right in if you write that comment down for them. And then it's really hard to know exactly how much learning was accomplished in that moment.
And here's my second question. Is this only replacing your terminal comment at the end of the paper? Because I noticed you still have marginal comments on the paper.
So this was me experimenting. So when I would be reading through, some of it I would still go into the review pane, partially because I'd been doing this with them all semester. They'd been getting commentary in Windows Review Pane. And just kind of, so I would kind of know what pieces am I going to stop on? Where do I want to focus my comments? As I went on, in terms of like getting, through towards the end, I stopped really doing just about anything in that review pane. Like maybe I would highlight a few sentences or something like that. Again, just to like make it a little easier, visual markers going through the paper. But it was all just, really quick scribbled notes that I could kind of organize my thoughts and say, all right, when I'm giving them this commentary, that's how I'm going through it. So I think like that will change even just the more I use it. I'm excited to do it more especially for drafting this time through. Yeah.
Just like a comment, I didn't even think about using it for something like a YouTube video, and that's great because it's giving multimodal feedback to a multimodal project and engaging in it, as you said, in real time, reacting to the video, and I think that's really useful.
I totally agree. I hadn't thought about using this for my students' GarageBand project that's coming up for their second assignment, but I'm definitely going to because it's really hard sometimes to give them feedback about a song because, you're just giving them like a time or something, then they've got to go find it. So one question I did have for you, though, was if you didn't have your headphones plugged in on that YouTube video, would they have been able to hear the sound of their video?
Yep, because it literally captures everything that's going on. It's only because it was capturing my audio because I was using it normally, but because it was plugged in, it wasn't capturing on the same
So
thing.
it doesn't capture it directly from the computer, it captures it coming out of the speakers. Okay, and the quality is decent enough that they can hear it. Cool, thank you.
Just a quick question. So you get a link when you're
Nope, they can just apps it. Yep, they just plug it right into a search engine and it takes them right there.
So is it secure?
As far as I could tell, because you would have to have a really, and the link is, similar to like when they pull like a long YouTube, like it's all sorts of crazy words and letters and whatnot. It has nothing to do with like whatever the name you use to capture it. It's not synonymous.
So in terms of process, again, we're going around the table. It's a good question. So you're basically reading through once and sort of then stopping and thinking, so what I want to say in 5 minutes to the student is.
Yeah.
Right? That sounds great. The one disadvantage of that to writing that I can immediately see is, sometimes I'll occasionally write out a comment and think, no, that's not what I want to say at all. Do you go back and erase, or do you?
I definitely went back and erased them, especially, and I think one of the things I really loved the 5 minutes because it made me kind of organize my thoughts and get it into that time frame. I could always tell when I was getting away from this is what I wanted to say to that student, because I would look at and I'd be like, oh crap, I'm like on their introduction and it's 3.5 minutes. Like, all right. Let's restart, and I would just erase and start over again. I do think that's something that the more comfortable you get with it, the easier it is to kind of make your thoughts go really smoothly through that. But yeah, there is definitely some erasing.
And just to clarify, I was actually thinking of speaking for you, so what you were showing us was just comments on final drafts. So you're going to use it.
Yeah, and so I'm planning on using it all the way through for my drafts and for my final commentary this semester. I'm probably going to make it optional if students, for some of their reflective pieces, want to take that on and use it as well. I think that some students would find this really helpful. I think some really benefit from putting things in writing, but I think, again, giving that option for students to choose to learn in different ways is really important. So we'll see how that goes.
How about, are you going to try with them doing it with each other?
I am thinking about doing that, especially for when we do a multimodal project at the end of the semester. I'm not having my students pre-read papers this time through. When I'm doing peer review, they're going to be reading that in class. I have an hour, like a two times a week class, so that there's a little bit more room for that this semester, and I'm going to take advantage of that. But for their multimodal projects, yeah, I'm gonna try to push this a little bit.
Have you thought about? I'll take your question. Have you thought about how this is going to work for you when you grade? Because I know that I look at my comments on student papers before I slap that grade on it, before I terminate the relationship with the paper. Are you thinking you'll have enough in your marginal comments that you won't need to listen to your terminal comment again? Because I would die if I had to listen to myself talk.
Yes, and I think for me at least, that's one of the things that I'm kind of like when I'm doing that couple comments on the side, like what am I thinking about these things, like topic sentence are a problem here and whatnot. I think that is one of the main things. I think before, and this was something that as I went on with this process and got more comfortable with Jing, I noticed that, by the time I was ready to give them their commentary, I really knew what kind of grade I was going to give at the end. Does that answer?
Yeah.
Thought about how you might instruct them to use this and sort of guidelines. I really like the idea of the reflection.
Mm-hmm.
Any specific things that you might coach them to say?
Well, I don't like the idea of coaching them, partially because I think that takes away some of the fun of their learning. It's like when you ask them to do a reflection and then you're like, but this is what I want to see in that reflection. So make sure you answer these time questions really well. And so I think like anything, there'll be some norming going on with the group and seeing who uses it and how they use it. But I think for me, at least, I'm focusing on the fact that they can hear my voice and my tone in terms of giving these comments, and hoping that they will then kind of pick up on that. I mean, we'll see. I haven't done it yet, right? So it all sounds bright and shiny right now.
Freestyle.
That's right.
And on the logistical end, we were doing GarageBand with the tutor candidates in the tutoring class, and Carolyne looked at me and she said, "Why do they ask us questions? Don't they know we're just going to Google the answers? They can do that themselves."
That's a big part of my pedagogy. So we're going to find this out together. You will watch me Google this. But I do think for one thing, I've noticed that my students in general are more comfortable with technology than I am. But if I can kind of go through those videos, that's generally kind of one of my learning moments. Like, I'm not good at this, but if I can figure it out, I have faith that you can too. And, something with Jing, if it was a problem, or you wanted to, give them further feedback on a prompt that wasn't well explained or something like this actually is a perfect format for kind of giving that mini 5-minute follow-up, lecture or think about these things. That I think would resonate with our students perhaps a little better sometimes than that 4-paragraph email that we're going to send saying, I got all these questions, and that indicates a problem.
Do you think the way you did it was the best way to learn how to do it, like on the final paper, or would you had to do it again to learn how to do it? I think that was a successful learning tool for me, and in some ways, like, it was low stakes, because worst case scenario, if someone didn't like it or didn't get it, they were going to contact me, and I could be like, sure, let me do this the old-fashioned way here. I didn't get any of those comments back. I also think students do a lot less in terms of like reading through those final comments, and so I'm sure some of them probably listened to half the video and then were like, I don't need that. We're good. I saw my grade. Yeah. So I think in terms of like assessing how useful it was, not the best way to learn how to use it in terms of good for me, and in terms of I can't like screw up your writing process or slow you down in completing this paper because I'm learning this tool. I think really successful. Yeah.
I felt comfortable with it at least. See one, do one, teach one. Apparently with this one. So.
Cool. Thank you so much, Carolyne.
Now we'll be
Do you need
wondering.
the little thingy?
Now we'll be wondering, is your office still in